Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. Ali, you well?
Oh, definitely. Yes, absolutely well right now, and hope you are too. Yeah, that's as football weekends go, that wasn't a bad one at all. Yeah, wins for the men and the women's team as well. Just a very nice Saturday, even amongst the wind and rain of Manchester. And I think a lot of those fans making the trip up to the Etihad probably didn't mind the big old long 8-hour round trip because they were probably still buzzing from it all the way home.
Yeah, the games have been brilliant at the Etihad Stadium in recent years, and now Tottenham going on to win 4-0 at City on Saturday evening. James Maddison at the double, Pedro Porro and Brendan Johnson with the other goals. I mean, there's been a lot of talk recently about Ange Postecoglou given the mixed results in the Premier League. So Ange in, Ange out. Fairly simple decision, unless people deem it totally unacceptable that Spurs have gone and won their 4-0 at a time when City should be struggling, maybe should be winning by more.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did, Decky should have scored another one as well. And yeah, I can understand that. Look, the whole in out shake it all about thing it's all a bit silly, isn't it, in modern football? It really is. It's just like there's no patience, there's no kind of this kind of need to create a hashtag that they kind of people think, well, I suppose the only time I think I've ever seen that Spurs actually have an impact of sorts was, do you remember when Gattuso was
Yeah,
really close? And that's the
yeah,
only time, and it was like, but do you remember there was Ange out stuff before he got appointed as well? It was almost like they kind of felt that some people could do it again. And I do wonder where there's an element of the people that didn't want him to begin with, maybe that stuck with them, and every time there's a low spot. What I think was brilliant about this result, and actually kind of in saying all that, I did after the game do a kind of I suppose slightly sarcastic tweet with Ange in at the end of it, as if just to say, look, if any doubt kind of was there, surely it's got to be destroyed by that match at the Etihad. Because regardless of what you think about Postecoglou, his style of football, anything kind of qualms and issues you've got about the inconsistency, the away form, this was a match that just showed how good Postecoglou's Spurs can be. It was like the shining example. If he gets any kind of doubters even within the club, it will just like stick that DVD on or whatever you now. I'll send you this video file. What I was going to say video, and it shows how old I kind of am. I was going to start with video. Stick that in, watch that, and if you want to know what kind of Tottenham Hotspur we can be under me, that's what it's going to be, because everything was contained within that match that we needed to see. It was a big away win. It was taking on the champions at their own ground and absolutely dismantling them with the Postecoglou football. There was a clean sheet. Yes, I know they had a lot of shots. Vicario made some saves. I would still say Spurs constantly looked the more dangerous team whenever they went forward. And I know that's kind of weird when you see the amount of shots that City had, but I felt a lot of them were pot shots. They were sending ones over. Spurs, I think it was like 7 out of their 9 shots they had were all on target. You just kind of felt they were going to score. And yeah, and also it answered a lot. And I know we're going to go into more depth about these things, but it answered a lot about does he have a plan B? Can he adjust his team to suit various tactics? Yes, it's all in that performance, and that's the kind of the beauty of that for me, is that yeah, there's going to be wobbles and stuff when you're trying to do such a massive rebuild. But you just look at that game and you're like, okay, that's the heights we can reach. That's the ceiling. Even I don't think he even likes the word ceiling because he doesn't want to put a limit on anything. But yeah, that now is the standard that the players have to kind of adhere to themselves. They can do that, and you can do it against City. You absolutely need to take that same attitude, intensity, work rate against Ipswich, against Palace, against Fulham this weekend, and yeah, you'll be absolutely fine. It's kind of almost a lesson to them as well. As much, I don't think they've ever dipped in their belief in Postecoglou. Certainly from the things we hear and from what he's said himself as well, and what the players say. But this, I think, was just a very, very strong reminder that the style of football absolutely works. It really does.
Yeah, I think Saturday just highlighted why exactly Ange Postecoglou was brought to the football club. in the first place, and it's just mad how they can go from losing 2-1 at home to Ipswich, drawing at Leicester on the opening day, and then just going and totally dismantling City in their own backyard. I know City have been poor of late. It's now 5 straight defeats. But, I mean, to go there and win's massive. But to go there and win by 4 clear goals, unbelievable result.
And their 4 defeats were away from home as well. This was the first home one.
Can you remember the last team to beat Man City 4-0 in the Premier League? Pep Guardiola's Man City.
Oh, has he ever done that? I thought he'd never. Oh, he had. All those stats were wrong. There were stats after the game saying that he'd never lost by 4 goals. Go on. Who is it?
Everton.
I knew it had to be, but I thought I'd let you say it. I don't remember that. Was that really early on then?
That was like February 2017. Tom Davies scored a really good goal. And then Ademola Lookman scored the last one.
Wow. Yeah. Was it 4-0? And it was 4-0?
4-0 at Goodison. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I know the stat was at the he'd never lost at home by 4 goals. That was it. There you go. So yeah, Spurs did it and Everton didn't because they did it at home.
We did it first though. The originals, like so.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I really found interesting about the whole, because it was such an occasion. It was like Pep's new contract. Rodri on the pitch had this really lavish kind of presentation, kind of Ballon d'Or and and celebrating what he'd done. And you can understand that'd be quite intimidating for many clubs. They're going into that atmosphere. They're going in. There's our Ballon d'Or winner. I know he's not playing, but this is the kind of club we are. We've got De Bruyne back. We've got Grealish back, and all these kind of players available. And Spurs just blew them out of the water. It's a question for you actually, because I kind of was wondering this the other day. The Galatasaray match and the atmosphere they faced, albeit they didn't deal with it particularly well, and the result clearly showed that as well. Do you actually think stepping into an arena like that in Istanbul, facing probably the most hostile environment you're ever going to face for a lot of these players, did that help them with those like first 10 minutes at the Etihad and the noise, kind of thinking, well, actually in that respect, it's probably we've had worse than this?
Maybe, yeah, because you're just not going to face an atmosphere like that in the Premier League, what you get in Galatasaray. And I mean, I wasn't at the game on Saturday, so I can't really comment on the atmosphere inside the stadium at the Etihad. But like, you're going into this game, City had lost the last 4, Pep's just signed a new contract, and watching the first 10 minutes of the game, you're thinking, City are back here. Because they were brilliant for those first 10 minutes and created a good couple of openings. Haaland hit one wide, and then I think Vicario saved one. And from probably, if you're a Tottenham fan, you're thinking, oh, God, it's going to be one of those days, especially when Yves Bissouma was getting a yellow card after, 15 seconds for bringing down Phil Foden. But Spurs coped with it really well after that. I think the worry probably would have been if City had scored within those first 10 minutes, then how things would have panned out after that.
Yeah.
Would it have been one of those where Spurs, crumble and City just get back to the very best? But Spurs managed to see it out, got that opening goal, and then things just quickly turned in their favour. And there was only one winner after that.
Absolutely. And City are always going to create chances. That's the thing. I think I've seen some people kind of saying, oh, but City still kind of got past them. City do that to everyone. Every team, they've got so much quality. You just have to accept there's going to be periods in the game where you're going to be hanging on a little bit. And I thought, exactly like you said, I think once Spurs settled a little bit, you could see the defensive shape suddenly became really good. And City were kind of, they had to resort to quite a few efforts from distance or pinging the ball into the box and heading it over and things like that. They weren't getting in behind as much as they were in those early couple of minutes when Spurs they just settled and found their rhythm. On the atmosphere, it was good. It was in terms of, from a City perspective, it was noisy for about 10 to, it was pretty much Maddison's first goal. That kind of knocked it down, and his second goal, which is only like 7 minutes later, absolutely killed the atmosphere. There was nothing there whatsoever. And obviously, you saw probably on the TV, they're streaming out in the second half, leaving. To be fair, I've got to give them credit. There are some fans in front of us that were still singing City, City, even when they were 4-0 down, as if it's kind of to show that they were supporting them still. But yeah, it was Spurs killed the atmosphere. They killed the occasion. They were like proper party poopers. They really kind of destroyed that. And yeah, it's the way to do it. 4-0. That's got to be up there with kind of Spurs performances over the years. It has to be right up there, and definitely the best Postecoglou performance and result of his era.
I can't think of many better or any that really get that close to it, because this is just incredible, really. To win 4-0 at the reigning Premier League champions, even though they are struggling, they've still got some unbelievable quality in that team, and all 4 of the goals were brilliant from a Tottenham perspective. We'll speak about the first, and James Maddison, who we didn't expect to be in the team on the previous pod when we were doing our teams. I think we both went with the same midfield three of Bissouma, Sarr and Kulusevski, and that meant keeping Johnson and Son on the wings, Solanke up front. But Ange changed things about. Maddison, in the lead up to the game, he's had 2 weeks at Hotspur Way, not part of the England squad again, but he's quite clearly made an impression on Postecoglou and the coaching staff over that fortnight. I think Ange was speaking after the game and mentioned that Maddison was ready for a big game, and that meant he threw him in. And that tactical change, moving Kulusevski back to the right wing, Maddison in the midfield three, proved to be an absolute masterstroke.
Yeah, it did, and people kind of underestimate sometimes what it means when players they've got a point to prove, and also the international break, being there and being able to absorb everything that the manager and the coaches want from the coming game. And then you've got someone like Brennan Johnson comes back, played a lot of football for Wales over that break, kind of big matches as well. And yeah, they've probably looked at it and just thought, well, the shape that we want to have. And I do think it was a masterstroke. It was one of those where kind of we know Decky's been so good, Kulusevski, in the deeper role, and you kind of think, do you want to even waste him on the wing? But everything, exactly what you said was spot on, is the way City do the man-to-man marking. Johnson is going to beat them occasionally for pace, but Kulusevski is just going to wreak havoc every time he's on the ball. And that the best way to destroy man-to-man marking is to beat your man. It's as simple as that, because then the other guy has to come across and someone else has got space. It's like really, it's one of those that sounds almost too logical, but that's the way it works. And yeah, Kulusevski is just, I mean, we could have a whole podcast for some Dejan Kulusevski right now. He's just incredible. But going back to Maddison, yeah, it was the perfect match for him on his birthday as well, which was rather fitting, his 28th birthday. And it wasn't even just his goals. I thought his all-round play was really good. The confidence he got from that first goal was huge. The way he would then come back and receive the ball in tight areas and use it so well. That was the key to it as well, was, again, go back to what I said at the top of the show, that I know there's a lot of people that hate the fact that Spurs play out of the box, and that's the way they start their football. They get around the press and things like that. I know City's press was a little bit uneven, but they were still pressing. But Spurs kept that philosophy of, we're going to play around you, we're going to play around you. And ironically, the one time they didn't was the build-up to the first goal.
Yeah. And, I mean, great goal as well. Kulusevski at the heart of it. All came from a Radu Dragusin long ball over to the right. Kulusevski showing his strength, making light work of Josko Gvardiol, and then just swinging in an inch-perfect delivery for Maddison to finish off. I mean, a lot's been said about the finish and the ball in from Kulusevski. I think more has to be said about Maddison's run to get into the box in the first place, because if you watch that from like the aerial view, the bird's eye view, brilliant, really good run. Because Maddison was saying to Kulusevski ahead of the game, when you cut in onto your left, I will be making those runs from the left half space. And that's exactly what he did. It reminded me a bit of Wayne Rooney scored this brilliant goal for Manchester United at Arsenal. This was 09-10 season. It was a bit of a swift counter-attack, and he just went full pelt from the halfway line. I think it was once Nani got the ball and he fed it in. It was very similar to that. Maddison, full pelt into the area, didn't have to break stride, and it's just a lovely, lovely goal, and all comes from good movement and good play from Kulusevski.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're the best goals, aren't they? When you know they're coming, when you talk about it before exactly what to do and in the moment. And yeah, it was just the ball, the delivery. I mean, the Dragic ball was a good ball as well.
Yeah.
It's not a hit and hope. It is a kind of a knock down the line for Kulusevski. And then his strength is just remarkable. That is like a lot of people talk about his quality and his energy, but his strength on the ball. There's very few times you'll ever see someone knock him off the ball. He's that strong a guy, and having to kind of interview him and we both have, and he's quite an imposing figure when you're in front of him. You can see he's got that frame about him that you're not going to get the ball off him in an easy way at all. But to cut in and hit a ball with that quality into the run. Maddison didn't even, like you said, the run's brilliant, but he didn't even have to check his stride. He just met it perfectly. And funnily enough, I've only just seen this morning that they asked him a question that I wondered whether it was actually his instep or whether it was his shin. They asked him, Sky, after the game. I think he was like, "Oh, Jamie, it's my birthday, and you asked me a question like that," kind of thing, which suggests it probably came off his shin. But it doesn't matter when you're in that position. You just got to get your leg to it. From that point on, the game just took a completely different turn, and his confidence just went through the roof. Maddison.
It did. Really good second goal as well. Maddison, again, in the right place, and this all comes from Spurs winning the ball, Son getting it on the edge of the area, and Maddison making the run around Son playing that reverse ball, and then it's just a cute little dink over Edison, and yeah, that's just a player full of confidence, that finish.
Yeah, was it Guardiola gave the ball away?
I think so, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Again.
So he's had a bit of a mare in that kind of 7-minute spell. The interplay between Son and Maddison is beautiful. I think Maddison was talking about after the game that he felt like his best run in that moment was to kind of run around in a bit of a semicircle around him. And Son's ball, we talk about Kulusevski's pass, but Son's ability to thread that ball into his path as well. It's like a reverse ball. It's really clever. And again, like you say, with the confidence, Maddison's touch, and just the half a nanosecond that he's got to look up, realize Edison's come out, and dink it over him. Just beautiful. And at that point, the Etihad was just silent. All you could hear with the Spurs fans going mad in the other corner. Beautiful goal. Just, this is the kind of football that Postecoglou wants them to play. Even the first goal. I know it's it maybe goes away from the playing it out from the press, but he wants his defenders, if they see a quick ball on, to take it, and that's what Dragic did. Spurs are just flying with the goals they're scoring right now, and this was another lovely example of the football.
It was a fantastic goal, and the same goes for in the second half as well with Pedro Porro's strike. And again, similar to the first in terms of Kulusevski, just using that strength. Must have had about 3 or 4 players around him.
Yeah.
Got the better of them, and then
nutmeg, wasn't it, on Gundogan as well?
Yeah, combined with Solanke, who put it on the plate for Porro to finish off.
Yeah, I thought there was a nice little bit of interplay with Sonny, and I thought the Solanke is this little burst of pace that he does at the end. Solanke's got this kind of funny gait sometimes in the way he plays it. He looks knackered, and in a split second later will suddenly sprint. There's something about his kind of style that is so kind of I think it just probably surprises defenders. And yeah, it looked like the ball was like really far past and he was going to get stuck right near the touchline. He just did this little burst of pace that got him to the ball even like far quicker, and he was able to turn and just lay it back to Porro, just smashes in that far corner. That's another bit of lovely flowing football. And I was trying to think, they're all 2 counterattacks, isn't it? You can't say the second one was, because it's kind of winning the ball high up the pitch, which again is one of the key tenets of Ange ball, as if we're going to call it that. Lovely goal, and they went and did their little special celebration, didn't they, in front of the fans?
Yeah, they like playing a bit of Mario Kart on the way to games. I think Maddison said after the game there's a little group of them really in Porro, Solanke, Maddison, Archie Gray, Brandon Austin, and Brennan Johnson as well. And I mean, when you're making all these trips, it makes perfect sense. I mean, they had that one in May, didn't they, when they went to Australia for what, 36, 48 hours on a plane for a day?
Yes. I remember
always
that
going to come in handy playing Mario Kart. Just on Solanke, I think in the first half had a chance what he hit over after teaming up with Son. he came in the summer seen as this player who's going to finish off all these chances Spurs were missing last season, really like the missing piece of the jigsaw in the final third. And it's funny how it's worked out. In a number of games, he's not really getting the chances on goal that you want him to. But his general play is just absolutely incredible. He works so hard for the team, occupies defenders. He must be defenders' worst nightmare coming up against them, because just got to be constantly on it, just watching him. Maybe don't get his rewards in the final third for his goals, but as I've said before, he's like a proper player's player. Everyone who plays for Tottenham will just appreciate the work that he puts in the final third, and Spurs are so much better for having him in the team.
Yeah, why do you think it is? Why in a Postecoglou system the main central striker should be getting a lot of chances? Why isn't he getting those chances?
I've no idea. They all just seem to come either he doesn't get them or they come in one go, like the Aston Villa game where he'd not scored, I think, for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden gets 2 chances, finishes them off. I don't know. I don't know why the chances aren't coming his way. A lot of Spurs chances seem to be from one wing to the other wing, like picking up Brennan Johnson at the back post, just like missing out Solanke altogether. I couldn't tell you why he's not getting the chances, but you can't really knock it when he's putting in the work and others are profiting.
No, I wonder. The only thing I can think of is because of that work he's doing deeper and the ability he's got in holding up the ball, turning and feeding those wingers, that maybe the other winger is as soon as they see him doing that, is thinking, right, I'm off. And they're kind of running, knowing that the guy on the other side is probably going to get the ball. And maybe Solanke isn't, other than that one time, that third goal is the time that Solanke's managed to kind of get up there and keep pace with it all as well. Because he had that good moment, didn't he, when he kind of showed real strength, gave the ball to Kulusevski, and Kulusevski cut in, and then Ederson made a good save from that. But yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's having to do so much deep work, which has been hugely beneficial to the team, that he's actually not in a position to then be in the box to finish off what he started, I suppose. But yeah, he's just been a brilliant acquisition. He's just the whole kind of way Spurs play just revolves around him up there. He's such a figurehead, a focal point, and he's really settled well into the squad. They really kind of look to him, and I think he's a popular chap. But yeah, lovely third goal in front of the fans.
Yeah, it's very much like Harry Kane in terms of his general play, but just without the chances on goal, perhaps. That's probably the best way of summing it up. But they will come for him at some point, and they're bound to. Just going back to that one chance when you're on about Solanke in the middle of the pitch using his strength and then feeding Kulusevski. There was Brennan Johnson to his left at that point, but I think it'd been, knocked off position a bit by whoever the defender was, and the ball was stuck under his feet, so it could only really go one way. But yeah, again, that would have been nice if Tottenham had made that one count, because they did have chances in the second half to add to the scoreline.
They did, and in the fourth goal, as a manager, it must be so cool to have 3 substitutes you've made all kind of combined, because I'm pretty sure, I haven't seen a real close-up of it, but Bergwijn gets a little touch, doesn't he, on Grealish? I think he does.
I don't know, because I've seen you mentioning this in your player ratings and your talking points the following game. Yeah. I've tried looking a couple of times, but there's nothing definitive where you can see him get a touch or not. Right. So I don't know. It might be the faintest of touches, but what he does well is just close down Grealish and make the angle difficult, and then Spurs profit from that.
Yeah, I'll claim that regardless. I'll claim the fact that he closed him down, forced the error, even if he didn't get a little bit of his toe onto the end of it. But then, and then Timo puts on the afterburners. Kyle Walker, who probably in any other point of the game maybe would have been able to keep up with him. And just, you could see, fresh player against tired player, just destroyed him and getting down that left-hand side. And then it was one of those where you're kind of thinking, he's going to try and put it inside the far corner, he's going to pull it across, and he just did the perfect ball across for Johnson to slide in. Do you think he was injured, Timo? I kind of felt looking at him, he stayed on the floor for a while, and then when he did eventually join the celebrations, I thought he was holding the back of his well, I hate to say it, but hamstring. It looked like it from my perspective.
Maybe if he's had that issue in recent weeks, missed out Galatasaray, didn't he? Made his comeback against Ipswich, was it?
Yeah. Came on late on, didn't he, I think?
So maybe if he has had a bit of an issue previously and it's not fully healed, then maybe it happened with this absolutely fantastic burst of pace. I mean, it's not every day you see Kyle Walker get beaten for pace like that at all. I know it's like 90th minute, Werner's come on a couple of minutes earlier, fresh legs, but even still, you'd still expect Kyle Walker to at least keep pace with him or get close to him, but he didn't. And the nice thing, what I took from that was Spurs players appreciated the work Werner had put in to create the goal, because usually, you know, your players will all run to the goal scorer, but Kulusevski and Jed Spence, who'd just come on at that point, went straight to Werner, who was on the floor. Then after the game, there was an image of Basuma holding Werner up in the air, and then there was the TV cameras panned to Sonny after the game. He was walking back onto the pitch, and you could see him with his arms raised high above his head, just clapping him. And then you could see him pointing to Werner, went over to him. There's more footage from the stands where he's there just with his arm round him, patting him on the chest, rubbing him on the head. And yeah, that was just really nice to see, because, I mean, Timo's season probably hasn't gone to plan the way he would have liked, but he still contributed a number of times. Says maybe doesn't have the goals and assists that he wants, but to see him come off the bench and just make an impact, that's what you want to see as a manager. And hopefully that does give him a lift in the weeks ahead, because he can have a big impact in the final third for Spurs.
Yeah, well, it was the two guys that have probably had the most stick this season.
Yeah.
The two guys that combined for the goal that capped it all off in the Etihad. And yeah, it was a brilliant bit of pace. I actually don't think we've seen him I'd love to know. There was a stat early in the season that he was Spurs' fastest. He'd had Spurs' fastest acceleration during a match, even more so than Van der Ven. That's the first time in a while I've really seen him go at it at that pace at someone. And yeah, if you've got the ability to do that, you're going to get into so many positions, which we've seen him be able to do. And it's just making the right choice, which he absolutely did at the end of this one. Just really hope that it's nothing problematic in terms of a muscle injury, because probably needs to start in midweek in the European game to kind of get his rhythm back up there. And Spurs really need him to start as well, I think, to be able to kind of keep some of these players fresh and rotating and the levels high and sharpness for everyone, I think.
Yeah, and as soon as Timo got on the ball, Brennan knew what to do. I think he was midway inside his own half, and then turned straight away, put on the afterburners, and once again was in the right position to finish at the back post. I mean, how many times have we seen him do this since he joined Spurs from Nottingham Forest? Countless times.
Training, isn't it? That's what they've been getting at him in training sessions to do.
Yeah, and Maddison was asked about him in his post-match interview with Spurs Play, and he said, you know, it's not luck, it is a skill, because he's constantly getting into these positions to finish them off. There's been times where he hasn't scored, but he's already got 8 goals this season, and the large chunk of those will be pretty much the exact same finish, just coming in at the back post and converting. And yeah, it's just a huge weapon for Spurs to have, with someone who can just get into those right places at the right times to make those tap-ins count, because we've seen it when maybe on the other flank it doesn't quite work out like that, with the opposite player coming in at the back post to finish off. But Brennan knows, and yeah, full credit to him. 8 goals this season, club's top scorer.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. Another one. Which player has progressed, and you can name a couple, which player has progressed the most under Postecoglou?
Tough on that. I think Brennan will be up there. You could say Kulusevski as well this season. Just looks like totally different player. And Pape Matar Sarr as well. He just seems to have gone up levels over the past 18 months. Yeah, I think there's a number of them, but I think those three for me would be ranking really highly.
Spot on. That's the three. That's kind of the first three that came to mind. I remember there was a little period where people were kind of complaining, like, who has actually progressed under him and that. And I do think it's starting to become clear now. And I don't think it's any coincidence it's the second season players, the ones that have had that kind of foundation under him and now, just delivering. And also, I mean, touch wood, because injuries at Spurs just can happen at any point. But I think he said it in his press conference the other day that you noticed in a lot of the second season players, not all of them, but a lot of them, that they're actually becoming more robust as well to his football. They're able to handle it. And this is like a bit of a theme in his managerial career. You see you're meant to see the injuries go down, but there are certainly players that, are a little better able to deal with it. And I feel like those three, Johnson has just come on leaps and bounds in his intelligence of where to go on the pitch. Like you say, that movement to the back post, the amount of times we've seen 2 goals from him that are constants, aren't they? It's the running into the box, hitting it in the bottom left corner across the keeper, and it's the sliding in at the back post. He's just done them so many times. And exactly like you said, and Maddison said, that's just hours upon hours on the training ground of doing that. And it's no coincidence. It becomes second nature when you're actually in a match situation. And I know we're going to talk about Sarr in a little bit as well, because he was phenomenal at the Etihad, I thought.
Yep. Before we speak about Sarr, we're halfway through the pod, so Ali's gone to let everyone know about the benefits of using our sponsor, NordVPN.
Yes. I mean, I was only in Manchester, so I didn't require NordVPN on this occasion, but even though sometimes with the wind and the rain, it did feel like I was in some other worldly part of the universe. But yes, when I do head off out and about, whether it's covering Spurs in Europe, whether it's covering them in the pre-season tours, and also just when I head off on my occasional holidays, I'd always kind of turn to NordVPN because it's just so helpful in various things, whether that is watching things I would normally want to watch back at home on little moments of downtime, whether it's at a game and they don't have little replay screens, which are very helpful for us journalists when we're writing stuff. With NordVPN, I can make my phone think it's back in the UK so I can watch the game on whatever TV channel it's on back home or wherever it's at. And likewise, you can kind of do the opposite. You can make your phone or your device, your tablet, whatever you're using, think it's in another country. So you might want to be able to download certain things you can only download from other countries, or you might want to buy, let's say, concert tickets, airplane tickets, book a hotel or something by doing it from the country you're actually booking the place in, and that could maybe get you better offers. And also from a security point of view, and this is something that I've started to use a lot when I'm using public Wi-Fi, especially when doing work and things like that, is you can switch on NordVPN, and it does help you to a degree in stopping nasty people from getting onto your laptop, tablets, phones, whatever it may be, and taking your various bits of data off of there. And on top of all of that, NordVPN, we know, is the fastest VPN in the world. And it means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. And if that wasn't enough, because you listen to the Gold Guest Talk Tottenham podcast, we can get the best discount for you off your NordVPN plan. If you go to our special link, which is nordvpn.com/goldguest, and that will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. And there's absolutely no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And in case you missed that link, the URL is in the podcast episode description box.
We'll talk about Pape Matar Sarr now then, since you touched up on him just before the Nord ad. He's been fantastic of late since he's come back into the team. I think it was like last season, undroppable. First few weeks or first couple of months of this season, bit in and out of the team, not getting the minutes he wants, but he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet now.
Yeah. I mean, he's a young player. They're going to have little moments when they're not as good. It's just there are so few players. Even someone like a Jude Bellingham. Even we're seeing with him, he's going to have little moments when he's not. Even the best out there in the world are going to be like that. And I genuinely believe that Pape Matar Sarr can be one of the best. Can be a Premier League star. I think he's got so much about his game. Love watching his confidence, and I don't think it's any coincidence that he kind of even performs like even more brightly in the big games. He's so comfortable on that level. Obviously brilliant at the Etihad on Saturday. Scored that lovely goal against Man City the last time he played them in the Carabao Cup. Scored a couple of times against Man U, doesn't he? In over the last couple of seasons, he's always kind of there or got an assist, and yeah, he's just got something about him that he's not scared of anything. And I do wonder whether we spoke about it way back when he was on loan, having that season at Metz, the season he went back, and them having such a difficult season and having a battle and so much a different kind of pressure on him to try and keep that club up in that division. Ultimately, they weren't able to do that, but he was a kind of gave them the biggest bit of hope. He was one of their real star players as that season got towards its business end. And I do wonder whether just it kind of allows you to have no fear in other situations because you've kind of really battled in such a tough situation. And I love the way he plays. There were so many moments on Saturday when he just motored away from challenges. They were sliding in on him and he was just like slaloming in between them. He's probably one of the most complete players at Spurs in terms of you can equally imagine him breaking into the box and scoring a goal or setting up a goal as you can tracking back and making a tackle in his own box. I think he's just got so much about him. And, we'll probably talk about this as the weeks go on, but I do wonder whether he might end up being the number 6 that Ange turns to against maybe like the Bournemouth game or the United Cup game, perhaps, when Basuma can't obviously play every single game. Because I do think he played there for Metz a few times, and I think you can trust Pape Matar Sarr. I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay him. Was he 22? So young, but you can trust him on the pitch to do exactly what you need him to be tactically disciplined, to be clever with the ball. Yes, he's going to make the odd decision because of his age that, these things happen. But on the whole, I just think he's such a player. And I know it's a comparison now that's kind of almost become a bit of a cliche, but he has got the ability to become a Vieira type. The game is so similar to watching him over the years, painfully watch him over the years kind of doing what he did down the road. And I think he could be Spurs equivalent of that because I think he's only going to get stronger as well. He's got this kind of really lithe, kind of almost skinny frame. And I think as he gets older and the more demands Premier League football places on him physically, I think he's just going to get bigger and stronger and, just a hell of a player.
Yeah, it might only be slight, but there's plenty of fight in him. I saw that towards the end when I think De Bruyne wasn't happy with him. I think De Bruyne was probably indicating you've gone down too easy there in the area when Sarr nipped in and got the ball away, and then I think Sarr pushed him, didn't he? And then Basuma came in, and then a few of the others came in. But he's been fantastic this past couple of months for Spurs in the middle of the park. He's just everywhere, so much energy. He's just a fantastic player. There's not really much I can add to what you said about him. I think you just summed it up perfectly there with Sarr.
It can only get better, which is so scary.
Yeah, that's the good thing as well. And I think what maybe helped on Saturday was it was the midfield three from the first 10 games of last season, Basuma, Sarr and Maddison, and they were so good together. And then, those injuries and suspensions started racking up from last November onwards and didn't really see them together much after that. But I think we've said before, Sarr might be better in midfield with Basuma rather than Bentancur, but that's probably just because of that experience he's had with him so far in the Tottenham team. But yeah, he's some player, Pape Matar Sarr, and full credit to Basuma as well for putting in a really good showing at the base of Tottenham's midfield. On Saturday, used the ball really well, putting tackles, just everything you'd expect from him in the number 6 role. And credit to him as well for being on the booking after 15 seconds or so, because we saw that a few times last season where he'd been sent off. Luton, Forest as well. Was that straight red or was that 2 yellows? I can't remember. It went to VAR, didn't it?
Yeah. So it can't have been a second yellow.
I think it might have been a straight red after VAR. But yeah, I think there was a moment in the second half when Foden was running through and he fouled him. and you're thinking a couple more of those, you're going to get a red card there. But no, he was fantastic, just a constant outlet for the defence as well to pass to. And yeah, he's probably been a bit of an up and down season for Bissouma, being in and out of the team, with Bentancur being an option again. But it was fantastic. I mean, you can't criticise any of those players on Saturday. To a man, brilliant across the 90 minutes.
Yeah, my player ratings, I don't think anyone that started got under an 8. I think it was everyone
else. Tempted to give out a 10 or 4-0 at City, just not enough fire.
I had a lot of 9s. I was tempted on either Maddison or Kulusevski. They were both close to a 10. If I could have had a 9.5, they were fantastic. On Bissouma, 17 seconds in, and he goes in that challenge, and you just think, what are you doing? You're doing like the one thing that we didn't want you to do in this scenario was to lose your discipline that early on. Especially like you say, after what we saw last season, it was almost like a you haven't learned a single thing moment. But actually, the subsequent, 90 plus minutes included added time that we saw showed how much he had learned. He was so disciplined. But you could see early on, he was a bit like, I don't know what to do now, because it was probably only 2 minutes afterwards, Foden went away from him. And he kind of did that classic footballer thing of holding his hands up, going, I'm not going to bring him down. I can't bring him down. Even if I do bring him down, it's an accident kind of thing. And it just showed you, oh, no, he's absolutely compromised himself already in the game. But he just learned to deal with it brilliantly. Because the thing is, there's no one really on the bench that he could have brought on to, kind of change that scenario, because you would have just brought Bentancur on kind of being worried about him getting a second yellow. So he had to be ultra disciplined. And I actually felt like, a bit like Maddison with his goal, I felt like the more Bissouma realised, it's okay, I've got this, I'm fine, he got better and better and more confident. And exactly like you say, the amount of times he would come back and be the man to say to defence, give me the ball, don't worry, just give me the ball. Doesn't matter if I've got 3 players around me, I'm going to turn, I'm going to find one of the fullbacks and we're going to get away. And he did over and over and over again. That was, for me, I felt bad because I knocked him down a mark because of that early yellow card. But actually, it was probably one of his best performances for Spurs from that 17 seconds on. He was so good. And that's it. When that, like you say, the first choice midfield of kind of last season, it was firing. It's got a lovely balance to it, and you could see that on Saturday.
Yeah, I know, like Christian Romero in his first season at the club, and when he was with, I think, Genoa and Atalanta, he used to pick up yellow cards like nobody's business. Like, they were going out of fashion. And I think we used to say, like, once he'd get a yellow card, he were focused. After that, I mean, you couldn't really say that about Bissouma, just having like a mad 17 seconds and he's all right after getting a yellow against Foden. But yeah, managed to cope well in that situation, because a lot of players probably would have seen red after that, especially when you're coming up against players like Foden in the middle of the park, De Bruyne coming on.
The worst team to face on a yellow card, pretty much, isn't it?
Exactly. We'll move back into defences. I think we've got to give a lot of praise to Ben Davies and Radu Dragusin. Spurs were already going to be without Mickey van der Ben for the game, and then Ange in his pre-match press conference on Friday said Romero still needed a bit of time out, maybe next week when he makes his return. So that meant it was Ben Davies and Radu Dragusin at the back. They played together a number of times already this season in the cup competitions. There's certainly a good partnership there. They understand each other's games, and both were just towering figures at the back, heading balls away, defending really well, calm when on the ball and putting the ball into good positions for the teammates to go on and attack. And I noticed Ben Davies is getting an awful lot of praise for his display, and it shouldn't take a performance like that for him to get the recognition he deserves, because whenever he comes into the team, you know what you're going to get from him: a really good, consistent shift at the back. And you don't stay at a club 10 years if you're a bad player. He's been a regular under Conte, Poch, Jose Mourinho as well, and Ange knows exactly what he can deliver for him on the pitch. The only thing I think needs to be decided on in the coming months is probably a new contract, because he's out of his current deal runs out in the summer. So whether you're extending that for a year or two, I think Spurs are better for having Ben Davies in the squad, because he's the type of player you want when called upon, just a steady head at the back, and fantastic at the Etihad.
Yeah, there's this really weird thing that I think his critics kind of have this view that he's lingered in the background at Spurs for all of these years as this like kind of bad presence that sums everything bad up about the club. And it's kind of like, no, it's just not the way it is. Every manager that's come in has immediately gone, that's the guy I need in my squad. He's just so adaptable. He's such a professional. He's like, as Maddison called him in his Instagram, Mr. Reliable. He is there for you when you need him to be. He battles. He gives you never get a less than 100% performance in terms of his attitude and his desire to win the game for the club. He loves the club. He's given everything to the club, and I just feel it's so kind of, I don't know, almost like just a ridiculous take on a player like that who's given everything over these years, like trying to kind of almost claim that he's like leeching off the club. It's like, no, he could easily go to so many other Premier League clubs and be starting week in, week out. But they've always wanted him around, and he's always been happy to kind of give everything he can to the cause when he can. And this was just another performance that just showed. I think he's actually, in terms of his football, is probably weirdly having one of his best seasons for Spurs. Probably the one I'll always go back to is when he came in for Danny Rose, when Danny Rose got injured midway through the season under Poch, and Ben Davies came in, was just superb for the second half of that season. It's a real kind of steady left back for them. And obviously now under Ange, he's a centre back. And I thought a big thing is you touched on it there when you were talking about Dragic and Davies. I think a big thing for them on Saturday was, I think we've kind of felt with Dragic, and there's been this theory that actually maybe he's going to be better in the games where he's really got to defend and do a lot of defending than when he's actually got to use the ball and be technical with it. But I actually felt that both of them played the Postecoglou system perfectly on Saturday. Their use of the ball was fantastic. They're used to kind of finding the fullbacks, finding Basuma or Maddison, whoever was coming back for the ball. We saw Dragic setting up the first goal. Kind of gets forgotten that Ben Davies intercepted the ball in the build-up to, was it the third goal?
Third one, yeah. Horror's goal.
Yeah, and they've both played their parts in the build-up play as well as the actual defending. And yeah, I think there's a nice balance to them, the way they play. I think having the left foot and the right foot together, I think Dragic on the right is going to always naturally be better than he is when you shove him on the left. I also could kind of, it was pointed out to me by people that kind of could see more of the close-ups that Ben Davies was leading Dragic through it a lot, pointing and telling him what to do and where to be. And this, if I'm going to be, 100% honest, as we always are on these podcasts, I kind of feel that that's one side of Romero I want to see more of. Whether it's a communication thing, whether it's an English language thing, I don't know. But I see him as, when he leads, it's by leading by example. Here's my aggression, look what I can do. Whereas I like to have someone in that centre-back, someone in the defensive line that can tell everyone else what to do, where to be, what they should be doing. That's kind of where I want a captain-like figure to be. And Davies is essentially the captain of Wales now, isn't he? Because it's Aaron Ramsey, isn't it? He's not really there to play. So it's kind of essentially become Ben Davies, I think, as the vice captain. And you can tell he's a leader type figure. But that's another interesting thing. He's never been involved in the leadership groups at Spurs. Even, when it was like the Højbjerg, Dyer, Kane, Lloris kind of bunch, it wasn't Ben Davies in it. And now with Vicario, Romero, Maddison, Son, there's no Ben Davies. And you kind of think, he's 31. He's a very experienced guy. He understands football really well. He's a very bright, clever guy as well. Yeah, he's not kind of seen as a leader in the team. But when you watch him on a night like that, he's leading that back line. And I don't think it's any coincidence that they looked more and more organised as the game wore on, and he's telling them all where to be, and they kept a clean sheet. And I thought both he and Dragic were excellent. I thought they were really good, and I love the fact, you know what I'm like, I love it when it destroys a kind of a preconceived notion before a game. And this kind of notion that, we've got Dragic and Davies, this is it, we're going to get hammered, that kind of thing. And actually, they were a huge part of why Spurs didn't get hammered on the day. So, question for you then, Ben Davies, new contract or not?
New contracts. I think it's a no-brainer. But I suppose it depends what he wants to do.
Exactly.
If he's
That's the key.
31, going on to 32, last few years of your career, you might want to play a bit more regularly. But I suppose given the age, Spurs are really going to offer him maybe, 2-year extension, 1 year. They're not going to spring a surprise, go, right, five-year deal for you right here. Yeah, that's not going to
We'll
happen.
probably get off this podcast and that's been announced, a 5-year deal.
But yeah, there's so much worth to keeping him at the club. Like you say, just a leader. Might not be captain in name, but to have another leader on the pitch is only a good thing for the football club and for Ange. So yeah, you can rely on him when he comes into the team, whether he's at left back, whether it's centre back, you know what you're going to get. And he's a player who, deserves so much more recognition for what he's done at the football club over the past 10 years. As like I said, you don't stick around at a football club for 10 years if you're a bad player. So going to be interesting. You'd imagine Christian Romero should be in a position to play against Fulham this weekend. I think Romero will come back in, but surely between those two, it shouldn't be so cut and dry. Who comes in, who starts?
No, absolutely not. And even does Romero come in? Can you afford to kind of just give him a bit more time out because they've got this really nice partnership going? Yeah, and on Ben Davies' contract, I do think it all comes down to him. I think if you're Spurs, like you say, it's a no-brainer. I think you keep him on. I think you keep his experience in the club. I think you start building towards his coaching career as well with the club afterwards as well, because we know that's something he wants to do. But when it comes to him, he's got a big decision to make. This is probably the next kind of, or maybe that sounds awful to say, but like the last big move he could maybe get in his career before you start thinking about maybe winding down. And I wouldn't be shocked with someone who's like he is such a kind of a clever chap, whether he maybe wants to, he might, and this is just me guessing. I don't know. This isn't information I have or anything. I wonder whether he'd want to try a move abroad or something like that and try a different culture, a different kind of lifestyle or something.
Did he grow up in Denmark when he was younger?
He had a few years in Denmark. Yes, he did, and exactly. Well, there you go. This is a perfect kind of example. He's a guy that kind of he's not going to have any fear over doing that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with him. I mean, is he going to be a left back under Ange Postecoglou? No, he's not. Is he going to be a centre back that's used reasonably regularly? To a degree, yes, and that's going to be the crux for him. It's like, can I accept that amount of game time? With Spurs injuries, he's always going to end up playing more. I do think he suits Postecoglou football better than people think. I do think with the high line, it's fine to have a defender who's not going to be like rocket pace, as long as you've got others in the back line are going to be the designated ones to run back if a ball's played over the top. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel like by this point, we might have heard something already if he was going to definitely stay, or at least some rumblings. But who knows? Might surprise us. We might get to the end of this podcast and see that Spurs have announced a new deal for him. But big night for him and Dragishin. It really was.
Regardless of whether he leaves this coming summer or in a couple of years' time, he's someone you want to see leave the football club with a winner's medal, because I think he deserves it for his service. And fingers crossed it'll be this season, because I think Spurs are going to put themselves in a good position, certainly in the Europa League, and then hopefully they can go far in the Carabao Cup and FA Cup as well.
Can I make a very what might be a strange comment?
Right.
I actually think, and it's kind of a question / comment, I kind of feel like he's been one of Spurs' best signings. And I know this is such a ridiculous, it sounds ridiculous because people will be thinking, oh yeah, but you want someone that contributes goals, assists, whatever. But if you look at how many games he's played for the club, how many times he's been there for the club, what his transfer fee was like nominal back in the day. It was so low. It was him and Michel Vorm, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Coming in pretty much almost together. And you think about, all of the years of service they got out of him. And then you look at like the huge money they spent on people like Tongi and Gio Lo Celso and players like that. And you just kind of, surely Ben Davies has to be there as one of the kind of the best signings they've made. And look, I know some people use that as a negative and go, oh, look, if that's one of the best signings, shows what a club it's been. But I actually think sometimes you can just make smart moves as a club. And to get someone who was, he would have been, 21 when he joined, and to kind of done everything he's done for the club and the things he's seen, the matches he's been involved in over the years as well, they've more than got their money back and then some out of him. That's just my theory.
Yeah, value for money.
Yeah.
I don't think you can argue with it at all. Obviously, Tottenham wouldn't have paid that much for the Welshman Maldini, as he's now known by quite a few people. But yeah, terrific signing, 10 years service, done really, really well for the football club. And just nice to see him get some recognition on Saturday for what was a really good showing at the back. Someone else who deserves a lot of praise, Guillermo Vicario. Number of good saves in the match, especially early on, and then towards the end as well, when City were pushing. I think Gundogan made a good save at his near post, and then one from a Erling Haaland effort. Got a good hand to it. That's what you want to see from Vicario. I know a lot will point to him in terms of maybe as a weakness at the back when those corners are coming in, but there was an example late in the second half where he was straight out, caught one, and just relieved the pressure. Really good showing from him.
Yeah, he dropped one early cross or a set piece, I can't remember what it was. And I actually felt a little bit like we were saying about Basuma. It kind of in a weird way focused him. And I actually thought from that point on, he was really positive. His handling was excellent. He came out for so many different things. Didn't come out unnecessarily when he knew he was not going to get anywhere near it. I would actually go as far to say, I mean, this question again to you, do you think that was one of his best performances for Spurs?
Oh, 100%. Just on the play ratings, I know you said Maddison and Decky were close to a 10. I'd probably put Vicario close to a 10 as well.
Yeah, he was one of my nines.
Yeah, I thought he was that good. I think we've seen a number of games where he's saved points for Tottenham with some fantastic saves, but this is what you want from him, going to the home of the Premier League champions and delivering a performance like that, and very much helped by a really strong, resolute defence in front of him. Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie also playing the part at the weekend in the fullback roles. But yeah, Vicario, what a signing as well. The cheap option, supposedly, because could have been David Raya from Brentford at the time. But no, he's been another one who's performed so well under Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, and it was his 50th Premier League game as well as Ange Postecoglou's, wasn't it? Because he has started every single game for him.
Yes, yeah, he will have done.
Yeah. He kind of marked that on his Instagram. He did a little post just saying, kind of essentially just how much he's loving it and then everything. And I just thought it was, again, such an all-round performance from him. We know he's a shot stopper. We know he can do that. His actual best save of the game wouldn't have counted. He made a brilliant save from Savinho's header. So good. It was like point-blank reflex, one hand in the air save. But yeah, the flag went up just after. Perfect. Everything you want from him. And again, a bit like the team, now it's about consistency for him as well. He's got to kind of deliver that kind of performance, kind of real leadership performance as well. And come out for those crosses and set pieces that he can come out from it and get them and collect them, and not come for the ones that he's got absolutely no chance of getting to. He was excellent. He was just so good, and City had no way past him. And I think the more kind of confident he was getting and the more saves he was making, the more City would just shrink, and you could see them kind of losing confidence that they were even going to get the ball past him. Because that was the beauty of it. You had, I thought Porro and Udogie played well as well. That was again one of the tactical tweaks, that they weren't as inverted as we normally see them. They sat. They would sometimes would take turns of going up the pitch, but mostly they were a bit more kind of solid, sat back, nullified the City wingers as much as they could. But yeah, I do think having Dragishin, Davies, and Vicario there as that little triangle was the real key to kind of just stopping City. Essentially they shall not pass, and they did not.
So you were in Ange's post-match press conference after the game. Fair to say, quite pleased with a 4-0 win at City.
Yeah, he did that thing that he does sometimes. Not contrary, Ange. It wasn't so much that. It was more when they have something really good happens to them, he wants to just kind of go down two avenues. And one is, well, this should be the norm. This should be what we're doing. It shouldn't be a special event. It should be part of what I want Tottenham Hotspur to be. And that's great. I love that. And then the other side of it is knowing how absolutely inconsistent Spurs is. You can't go absolutely down on the lows and go absolutely mad then on the highs because, like we said, they could absolutely mess up against Fulham. They've got every ability to, after the Lord's Mayor show, make a complete mess of that. But this is not new. I remember them winning at City after they lost at Burnley, didn't they? Before,
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it's like this is Tottenham Hotspur. It's who we are, mate. Essentially, it's just that they've got this ability to go from the sublime to the ridiculous within a week. So yeah, I thought it was a really measured press conference. I thought he was very calm and collected on what he said, didn't go overboard on anything, praised the players as he should, but didn't kind of say, it's a bit like Kulusevski did his interview. He was asked whether it was a turning point, and he was like, no, it can't be a turning point because we've got to win the next match. We have to, we're too inconsistent to say one match is a turning point. And it's quite right. They've got to now take exactly those levels into the next game. And that's pretty much what Postecoglou was preaching afterwards. I actually thought his and Guardiola's press conference were both, in different ways, really calm and controlled and balanced. Guardiola I think a lot of people expected him to come in being a little bit sarcastic. And I heard a couple of reporters saying he's so going to come in and say, oh, there you go, I should be sacked now. Shouldn't have signed a new contract, all this sort of stuff. But actually, he just came in and he went straight away and said, you lose 0-4 at home. All you've got to do is credit Tottenham Hotspur. That's all you can say, kind of thing. And he was very good about that. Obviously, then spoke about the fact that his players are now in a bit of a fragile place. You can see that. And Spurs did look the more dangerous team as the game wore on. But yeah, I thought both managers' press conferences were really interesting kind of studies on, when you're used to like Conte and his mad, like kind of animated press conferences, and even Mourinho with the catchphrases you come out with, to kind of have a massive game like that, an absolutely whopping victory for Spurs, and have both managers really calm and collected. It was strange for journalists. We're kind of a bit like, oh, okay. And it kind of allows the match to be the headline rather than what the managers said afterwards, which I guess is quite refreshing.
Yeah, big night for Ange, really, because as we mentioned at the start of the show, there's been a lot of talk recently, given Tottenham being so inconsistent in the Premier League, even though they've been doing really well in Europe and the Carabao Cup. And I mean, this win was a statement win.
Yeah.
And it was actually nice to see a lot of praise coming Spurs' way, because I can remember on the last trip to Manchester when they won 3-0 at Old Trafford, a lot of the talk after the game was how bad United were rather than how good Spurs were. But this time it was the other way around. And as Pep says, you lose 4-0 at home, you can only go and credit the opposition for winning. And really, really impressive win for Ange Postecoglou. I mean, Spurs can beat anyone on the day in the Premier League. It's just about getting that consistency into the game. You can't go and beat City 4-0 and then lose at home to Fulham at the weekend, especially if Spurs want to be pushing the likes of Liverpool and City towards the top of the Premier League. And it's just a shame they have been so inconsistent, because they should have won at Leicester, should have won at Brighton. The very least should have left Newcastle with a point. And then you're looking at the Ipswich home games and the Palace away game when they were really poor. Yeah. And if you're picking up maximum points there, you're not too far away from Liverpool.
No.
Let's be honest, the way it's going, you probably think the title is going to be heading to Merseyside.
Is that difficult to say?
Well, it'll be heading to Merseyside. I don't know which club will be winning it. But...
well, I think we know which one is more likely to be.
But yeah, Spurs really should be up there.
Yeah, they should. And this is the kind of the crux of it all. Is a lot of performances on the whole have probably merited far better results. But it's almost 2.5 games really where you can really see where the performance is just dreadful. And of course, that's Brighton second half, Palace and Ipswich. And you just think, yeah, if you'd fix those and not just been just really just I think the term that Postecoglou keeps using at the moment is finding solutions. He said the solutions are there within this style of football and what we coach them on the training ground week in, week out. And he said it's my job to communicate better with them to make them understand where to draw those solutions from, because they're there, they're just not using them. And actually, it was quite interesting before the game. I forgot to say this. He kind of really, because it was going to be his 50th, he was looking back over it, and he made a good point that I do think people forget sometimes, is that he said, I was taking over a club that finished 8th and had no European football. I wasn't taking over a club that was in the top 4, a club that was even near to getting in the top 4. I was taking over a club that had finished 8th, not only no European football, but a significant player turnover and a complete change in playing style. I do feel like he doesn't often have to kind of remind everyone of that. I think he just takes the hits and the criticism he gets most of the time. But it felt like a real occasion. He was just a bit like, have you seen what I've had to do here? Kind of like he's had to clean up the messiest house possible, really. And he's just finally making it look like what he wants it to look like. And you're going to have teething issues with that sort of stuff, even going into your second season. But yeah, this felt like we were a game that kind of, was a very much like, this is what it needs to be, lads. Here's where we're going. This is what it can be. And as he said, hopefully the next 50 will be a completely different set of games, because we'll have a more of a Postecoglou Tottenham now. Because you just literally frame that, and that's the one to look up to and replicate each week.
Yeah, I mean, the highs have been so high during his reign, especially the win at Manchester City on Saturday. But then at the opposite end of the scale, the lows have been so bad. The Ipswich game, Brighton, when you're winning 2-0. And that's what a lot of the time the focus is on. And I think the good thing for Spurs is the other teams above them, results have been a bit mixed this season. It's only really Liverpool who are running away and extremely consistent in terms of the results. And Spurs are only, 3-4 points off City now in second?
Yeah, 4 points off second, 3 points off fourth. They're right there. They are 6th place now. Yeah.
And I mean, you look at the games this weekend. I think Chelsea have got Villa at home. Chelsea could potentially drop points there. Liverpool have got City. City could drop points again. So you close into within City. As we keep saying, it's just about getting those results week in, week out, and just making sure you're in and around those positions. Hopefully on the podcast next week, we will be talking about wins against Roma and Fulham. First up, Roma in the Europa League on Thursday. I mean, we were speaking about this game before we came on the pod, and Ange has tended to change things a lot in the Europa League this season. But looking at the injury front, unless there's a few miracles in the treatment room over the coming days and players can make the comeback, it's only really going to be a few changes he can make here and there. And one of those will be Rodrigo Bentancur.
Absolutely. Just very quickly on the last point, because I just want to add it on the end. When you talk about the highs and lows, excuse me, they've smashed some big sides. 4 away at City, 3 away at United, 4 at home against Villa. It's all there, isn't it? It's mad. If you can just sort out playing against the teams that will sit back against you, that's where it's at. And if he can sort that, they're going to have an incredible kind of pathway forward. Roma changes. Bentancur, you've got a fresh pair of legs coming in. You've got these 2 games essentially to make the most out of him. We'll see whether the appeal is successful or not, which would probably only likely bring him back for the Liverpool game, because the minimum is 6 for this charge anyway, which I guess would negate, I suppose, the United match and Bissouma having to play that, because then you could play Bentancur against Liverpool. So it would probably only leave the Bournemouth as the troublesome game in the middle, as it were. Bentancur back for this one. The 2 18-year-olds you presume come in, Gray and Burval. Hopefully Timo Werner, if he's not injured. Then you're scratching around a little bit, I think. We were talking about this before we hit record, that, you said, no, I agree with you, that don't think you probably need to... Oh, actually, Will Lancashire's not available, is he? He's got a red card. He's suspended for this game. Anyway, I just realised I should have kept that conversation off air because it was actually completely wrong anyway. Yeah, so we can't even have Lancashire playing because of his red. So the only ways you do it is you play Sonny through the middle, I suppose. I did wonder whether him coming off on the hour mark was potentially a nod towards him having some kind of role against Roma. So yeah, I'm just trying to think now. Who else you got? Defense is there. Romero could technically come back, but you're probably thinking, do you, again, like you said, maybe use him for Fulham rather than this game? Change the keeper? Forced to come in?
I think Forster will start again.
Yeah.
I thought he did all right at Galatasaray. I mean, he drops a couple.
Mixed, yeah.
But he saved a number. I mean, that was a crazy game. Galatasaray could have had double figures, given the amount of chances that Osterman had. But yeah, I imagine Bergvall, Johnson probably coming to the team, Archie Gray.
Yeah. It might have to be at left back, Archie Gray.
Yeah.
If we didn't even talk about that, did we? Or Doggy going down twice and having to come off.
Yeah. Might be 4 or 5 changes. But to be honest,
about right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be going wholesale changes against Roma anyway, because they're a really good team, even though they've struggled this year. And after Tottenham lost the last game in Istanbul against Galatasaray, they can't really afford another defeat. Because the thing is, yeah, you're still going to fancy him to beat Rangers, Elfsborg and Hoffenheim, but you don't want to be in the position going into those 3 games where you're in and around, like, I don't know, mid-table in the league, because it's so tight as it is, it can change, pretty quickly. But Spurs just need to ensure they're in those top 8 places. So they need to be beating Roma, who I think have only won 1 game in Europe so far. Claudio Ranieri's manager again. He came in the other day. They lost away at Napoli at the weekend, but still going to be a tough game. Yeah,
it is. It's you can't take it lightly. If you can get yourself in a good position, even play a stronger team and make 2 or 3 changes at half time if need be, I don't know. But if you could get there and get 4 wins, it'd be 4 wins out of 5, won't it, if they could do it in this game. And it does put you in a very strong position kind of going into the turn of year. Rangers is a couple of weeks, isn't it? Because that's... Yeah, on paper you should be winning that game, but still, the rivalry, the English-Scottish rivalry, the noise is going to be there as well. That's probably going to come closest, isn't it, to Galatasaray, I'd imagine, in terms of the environment for them. Lay down your marker, get this game won, and if you can get a few players off at half-time and save them for the weekend, then you do that. But yeah, I still think 4 or 5 changes, and then you rotate the rest of the team. Some of them play one half, some of them play the other. But you got to keep the levels up. That's it. It's about that, and kind of revel in what they did at City. Enjoy it. Use that kind of football. Use that work rate as well. Don't just do. I've never understood that about, especially Spurs, how they can ever be arrogant going into a match. I never understand it. How you can ever have the overconfidence, knowing how streaky and inconsistent you can be, and how so many teams at Spurs have handed them their first win of the season already, kind of thing. And you just think, no. Yes, we know Roma have struggled. Yes, we're well aware they've had to change their manager. And, the Ranieri effect against Spurs, having especially won the title over Spurs that season with Leicester. You just can't take anything for granted. And this will be a good little test of where their head's at these next 2 games. Because if they can come through it with a really, really strong week, then they'll have proved to themselves exactly what they need to do going forward. Yeah, so this probably means Ranieri's getting his first win as Roma manager. Please don't let those be the first words of the next podcast. Right, that's it for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. Plenty to discuss after what was a truly memorable night at the Etihad Stadium. As ever, we'll be having coverage of Tottenham's games against Roma and Fulham this week on the football.london website. So as ever, just keep with us for all your latest Tottenham news.
To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.